Good evening and welcome to the City of New Franklin Council meeting. We're going to start off tonight with our committee meetings. Finance Committee, Mr. Katz.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Mr. Stiles.
We'll open up the Finance Committee at 6 p.m. First reading we have is Resolution 25R33, a resolution authorizing New Franklin to renew membership in the Public Entities Pool of Ohio and to enter into an agreement with Summit Insurance Agency to be the local representative. Vernon and Flower of Ohio with sales and member services provider, with Sedgwick as the administrator, and with Perso, Public Entity Risk Services Ohio as claims and risk control service provider, for the purpose of providing liability insurance and property damage coverage for New Franklin and declaring an emergency. This is our annual property insurance coverage. I was going through the list on that. I am really happy to see our cyber coverage added on there. That's become a big issue lately. I did notice we went up a bit from last year. Is there a reason besides just additional cost, or did we get additional coverage? Or?
Well, maybe a little bit of both. We added some units that we didn't have before. Cost of doing business goes up, insurance goes up. As you know, we've been with CUP a long time. There's some ancillary benefits to that. As you mentioned, the cybersecurity, there's a training component that comes with them as well. So we saw the same increase. Some years it hasn't been this dramatic for a while. Our HR coordinator, Stephanie Bouge, is with us, and then we also asked Jim Zubro to come. He's our agent to maybe he can give you a nutshell explanation if you would have.
Thanks. So you're in a pooling program with hundreds of other cities and villages and park districts, health districts, fire districts, and county fairs, and it's been a bad few years from an experience standpoint. Claims have not been good, and PEP buys reinsurance from reinsurance companies, and reinsurance costs have increased. As the mayor said, you've added actually 4 vehicles, including 2 new dump trucks. Your expenditures with some of the rating factors to determine the premium has increased by about $500,000. You also have about $1.3 million increase in property values. So those are besides the rate increase, and they, for the first time, they eliminated they call it a loyalty credit, which is a really bad term because you have been loyal. We appreciate that. But those factors have increased the contribution this year. Claims experience so far this year seems very good. It's their intention, PEP Board's intention, to get back to stable rates year in and year out. But really, for the long-term financial stability and integrity of the program, they felt they had to raise rates this year.
Can I ask, are we in a similar risk profile as our other peers, or different? Do you know?
I really don't know the answer to that. Your contribution really is based on your expenditures and number of employees, property amounts. But I think your claims experience overall has been pretty good. And so you're not really surcharged for that, with that option.
Jim, I mean, the same formula is applied to each of these municipalities, et cetera. I mean,
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Same criteria.
Good. Anybody else have questions?
Over the last couple of years, we've been told that there's been over 600 members in the program. This year, we're being told there's just over 450 members. Is those correct numbers?
I don't know that anybody has left the program, sir. I'm not exactly sure how many are in the program, but as you may recall, it's endorsed by the Ohio Park and Rec Association. Stark County Park District's a member. The Ohio Association of Health Commissioners also endorses PEP, and Stark County Health District is in that. And the Ohio Municipal League now endorses PEP for their member cities and villages. I can find out exactly how many members are in it, but I don't know of any members that have left the program.
Okay. This is a good program overall, I mean, it is a big increase of 16% increase over last year. And then not having that loyalty credit that we've had over the last few years also takes a bite in it. We have been with the program for 11 years. And I'm comfortable with it.
Anybody else? You all right waiving the 3 on this so we can vote tonight?
Yes.
With that, I will close the Finance Committee at 6:07.
Thank you. Our next committee is Safety Committee, Ms. Jones.
Resolution 25R34, a resolution to proceed with an additional levy of a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation to replace an expiring 5.75 mil fire EMS levy to enable the city of New Franklin to provide fire protection services and ambulance and emergency medical services, and to submit the question of the tax to the electors at the November 4th, 2025 election and declaring an emergency. We're having to list this in this way because rules are being passed that will no longer be able to call it a renewal. So that's the reason the terminology is different, but it's basically the same tax that we always do. And in this case, this is not a want to, it's a necessity. Because no one do we like to see when we're in trouble, but the fire, the EMS, and the police. And we want them to be the best, we want them to have good equipment, and we want to know that we have good people working there. And in order to get good people, you have to pay them. And all of that takes money, and we realize that, and that's one of our major necessities, in my opinion. Gentlemen, what do you think? Are you in agreement with me?
I can second that. I thought.
Well, that's what
I've never realized I'd like the fire truck or the ambulance to show up in the house.
I know, me too. That's why I always say, I'd like to see that. I want to see them, but I want to have the best equipment, and I want them to know that they're going to get whoever they're transporting there safely and efficiently, and all of that takes money. I wish I could say it differently, but I can't. And this is really not asking for that much more than what we're already saying right now. Jim?
No, this is, you said everything correctly, and this is exactly the same millage that we've been collecting for the last 20-some years, or 5.75. It will bring in more dollars for us because property value increases and stuff, but we're not asking for an additional millage on this. So this is just to get it presented to the Board of Elections to as the process to get it on the ballot for November.
Does anyone have a problem with waiving the fee? I'll close my meetings at 6:11.
Thank you. Our next committee meetings are in community development. Mr. Schaefer.
We'll open the Community Development Committee at 6:11. Resolution 25-R-35. Resolution opposing House Bill 335 and urging the Ohio General Assembly to reject legislation that eliminates inside millage and transfers local budgetary authority to county budget commission and declaring an emergency. Sure.
Yeah,
Mayor has something to speak on this.
Well, this, I was going to say this came out of nowhere, and it just about did. We get alerted to this, the state operating budget annual, well, it's biannual, and it has to be adopted by June 30th. And there was a House version and a Senate version, and they're working back in the House, and they've been working on it, and there's been certain things that we've had some input on. But early last week, for the first time, I became aware through notification through the Mayor's Associations around the state that there was a provision included in House Bill 335 that effectively would do away with inside millage. And I'm not going to go into a deep dive into what inside millage is. I will tell you there's a constitutional and statutory basis for it. And New Franklin has been the recipient, like every other municipality, village, school district across the state. And there's a concern about the property tax expense. And it's been explained to me that what the legislature decided to do to address that is to eliminate inside millage. to have this brought up, in late June, in a budget that has to be adopted by June 30th, to give you an idea, New Franklin would lose $1 million. We have about a $12 million budget, and we don't have FAP. And if we lose that $1 million, there's going to be cuts. And I can't even project where they're going to be at this point in time. Summit County would lose $42 million. The local school districts, and we have 4 here, are going to lose anywhere between $2.2 to $2.8 million each. And how those school districts are going to absorb that, I have no idea. There's been we got late notice, and there's a lot of energy trying to suggest to our elected representatives what the impact would be. I did send a letter out to our state representatives. Our Senator Weinstein also copied Senator Rogner, who's been very, very helpful to us. Representative Bill Romer, who used to be ours and is now an adjacent district. He's the chair of House Ways and Means. They had their hearing today on it. I do not know what the outcome of that was. So we noticed him as well. And of course, Jack Daniels, Representative Jack Daniels, our representative. I sent all of them a letter explaining to them what the impact would be here. And my biggest concern is I don't think people had time to absorb and understand what the impact of this would be. Because when we ground it down, the average homeowner in New Franklin might experience a savings of about $200. That's a year. And meanwhile, maybe roads don't get paved. Maybe we don't have, we have cuts in fire service. Who knows what service would be cut? Or we'd exhaust what our rainy day fund is and then have to deal with it. And so it's dramatic, not to mention the impact on the schools. And I'm quite sure that the parents of kids in these 4 school districts aren't aware of, if you take $3 million from one of our school districts, you can say goodbye to extracurricular activities, among other things. So
Turn right.
this is dramatic legislation, and we're really hopeful that
At the light. Turn
that
right
there's some
onto
further
Manchester
thought
Road.
given to this.
Turn left.
But
Then
they've
turn
asked
right.
us, the Northeast Ohio Mayors Association, and also our Mayors Association of Portage and Stark and Summit, to approve legislation urging them to reject that. And so that's why I sponsored this.
Any comments from the council?
Do we have something on our webpage to
I
explain
did
this to
not,
the rest
I
of?
didn't yet, but I will.
Okay, I think maybe they would read it,
I want to get past it,
yes.
make sure council is on board.
I've got a few questions on it. So regarding the $200 a year, is that just the city's component that the residents would save? That doesn't encompass what the school charges would be, right?
No, that was supposed to be overall.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not sure about that.
I think that's just the
That's what
city's
they said.
component.
Yeah.
When we were on the,
When we did a conference call, we asked that question, and that's what they told us, but I don't know if that's accurate or not.
So yeah, whenever you sent out you copied council on the letter you sent to the representatives and senators and stuff, I reached out to Senator Daniels to ask about this. I had questions as well. And he made, from his information, it's gonna be about 800 a family. Overall, it's annual, yeah. But I started looking at what some other school districts do. I know Northwest, they've got an additional fee, I think, that I don't know if it's an income tax or what they do.
Yeah, they do.
what's that, Jason, that?
So yeah, they have an additional income tax that they charge the residents. And could the schools do something similar to that to offset if this were to pass?
The problem is it would have to
Right,
go
right,
to the
understood.
voters and pass, which the likelihood of that is not very high.
Right. So looking at when I looked at our numbers, just I wanted to see what this would take if, for some reason, if this does pass, how do we regroup and how do we, come back to this? So is it fair to say, this is based off of, I think the expenditure sheets that you sent out, the revenue sheets you sent out last September, October, something like that. This would have been the 23.
From the county, yes.
Yes. So essentially, I'll call it our total tax base that we get from income tax. The one I wasn't sure about, is that the 2071 income tax, is that an annual part of the city income tax?
Okay, this has nothing to do with the income tax, what they're doing.
Right, I get that, I'm just asking, is the 2071, is that part of our standard city, the 2% income tax?
I'm not sure where you're looking.
That-
Are you on the certificate of estimated resources?
No.
So there's a revenue sheet she sent.
It's actually, that is the amount for the fees for Rita. That's
Okay,
where it goes.
okay, so that's not really part of the 2% that we have.
Correct.
But the Parks and Rec fund, that's gonna be the city income tax and general fund income tax, those are both out of the 2% that we receive, correct?
Yes.
So what I was looking at is, if for some reason this does pass, how do we recover from that? Currently, we're at a 2% income tax. And I wanted to see what that would look like if we increased that to a 2.25 versus a 2.5, because I looked at other communities around us, and I think Akron is at 2.5, Barberton's at 2.25, and then there's some other communities around it that's over 2%. So figuring what I did is I took the total that we have coming in, which is $215,000 roughly, currently in our 2% tax. I'm sorry, it's more than that. Bear with me a second here. Okay, yeah, so our income tax right now is basically, this is the 23 numbers, $4,100,000 roughly coming in for the general fund, and $215,000 for the parks fund. If that's based on 23 numbers at 2%, I extrapolated that out and figured if we went to a 2.25 versus a 2.5, that would increase us from the 4,100,000 to the 4,600,000. So that gives us an additional 500,000. If we take that to 2.5%, that gives us an additional $1 million each year that's brought in. And if you figure in, that's just for the general fund, if you figure in the parks on that as well, that takes us up to almost 1.1. So if for some reason this does pass, if we would increase it, just on my simple calculations, if we increase from 2% to 2.5, that should make us whole as far as the city goes. And then the schools, I'm just thinking they could potentially do the additional income tax. Once again, it's got to pass, same with ours would have to pass. But there would at least be some sort of a mechanism to help them recover from those losses they see.
You know, and we've been forced to look at possible remedial measures, and we'll wait and see if it passes, and then actually we're going to have further discussions. One of the things that's very disappointing, everybody agrees that property taxes are high and they're getting higher. In part, that's not shocking to me because my grocery bill's getting higher too. I mean, everything's going up. You know, the cost of services go up, and it's unfortunate, but it's not shockingly surprising to me that the property taxes are going to go up. But, and I'm aware that there's a narrative, a dialogue that talks about Ohio is too heavily weighted on property tax as opposed to income tax and sales tax. And so there was a bipartisan committee that was put together to study this about a year ago and come up with recommendations. And the elimination of the inside millage was not among their recommendations. This literally, to me, came out of nowhere. And it's really unfortunate that this wasn't discussed 2 or 3 months ago. So people could have an opportunity to make these the contingent plans. So as much as anything, that's bothersome to me. If Summit County loses $42 million, that's going to have a significant impact on New Franklin. All right? I mean, Executive Shapiro testified that they probably have to close one wing of the jail. So there's people that should be locked up that aren't going to be. There'd be significant cuts to their sheriff's department. Their sheriff's department is supportive to us in a lot of in some of those specialty areas. The prosecutor's office would be pared down. They're just getting started. The Veterans Administrations, the Summit County Veterans Administration is funded entirely with inside millage from Summit County. And they would have zero budget in the Summit County Veterans Administration, and that's true for all IE8 counties. So those are among the things that will happen if this passes. And to think that there's going to be a decision on this within 12 days, how the schools are gonna I have no idea what the schools would do. It was suggested to Summit County that they should pass a sales tax, all right? And I would ask everybody in the room, what do you think the chances of the sales tax increase passing in Summit County is? So, so anyway, I feel pretty strongly about it. It's really unfortunate. I get it. It's well intentioned, but and I'll leave it to council how you feel. If you prefer to just be on the sidelines on this and wait and see, then of course we'll act and we'll respond. And I don't mean to put it that way. You guys can make your own choice on this thing, whether you want to take a position, whether you didn't. I wanted to give you the opportunity to take a position if you wanted to, and we have a very short window to be able to do that.
So I guess my question is, this issue aside, whether it passes or fails, then is it next week it goes to, it's in the budget, I guess.
Well, I understand the budget's supposed to be adopted by
The
June 3rd.
Okay, June 3rd, okay. So regardless of whatever happens here, whatever's gonna happen in Columbus is potentially already on track to happen one way or the other. What is our plan to react if it does pass? And I'd like to have those conversations sooner than later.
Yeah, sure.
Because if we need to get something on the ballot, I'd rather talk about it now, because that deadline is August 5th.
Well, and I think it's tax year 2025. All right. In fact, I'm sure it's tax year 2025.
Okay,
And taxes are collected a year behind, so there may be a year to try to adjust to this.
okay, because it's effective, what, January 1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be time. Beyond that, I mean, there's only so many options, and Susan and I have had that discussion already, and we already indicated we're going to want to meet with council. I thought about the finance committee, but probably committee as a whole. There's really only so many. We can think about an increase in the income tax. We can think about removing the exemption, which would be a horrible thing, I think. For everybody gets a credit, and if you live in New Franklin, you pay and you work. 90% of the people who live here work somewhere else, and they get a credit for whatever income tax they pay elsewhere. And so that would be another possible option.
And it doesn't have to do with the vote.
And so to remove that, and so that would certainly generate significant revenue, and then that 90% of people are going to start paying 4% instead of 2%. Some form of levy, because I think that's at the basis of this. You can't go among the 10 mills without a levy. So, for instance, we had to state that the fire levy is above the 10 mills, and put that up front. So it's really pretty much it's a pretty short list of possible options.
I think it's important that we do make this statement as council to send a message that we are opposed to this as a council, and that is probably not very well thought out. If it does make it into the budget, then the governor has a chance to scratch it off. And I'm guessing that there will be some municipalities that will want to go to court over this also. So it could be a long, drawn-out process. I absolutely agree with Mr. Powell. Is not just because of this, but we should always have a contingency plan. We should always have a thought process of what happens when the unexpected happens, and just so that we already have a road to travel down to start figuring out, as opposed to now when we're panicked trying to figure out. But I agree with Mr. Powell. We should start talking about what to do in a situation, whether it's an emergency, whether it's a change of laws and rules, budgets in the state house, whatever. We should start that process today instead of tomorrow. So.
Well, we have been discussing this as soon as we heard about it, so that's why the mayor said that we needed to, get together with council, to discuss this. And there's also some other things coming down the track that are just in line with this that make it even a little bit scarier, because there's the initiative out there to get rid of property taxes altogether. And who wouldn't vote for that if it's on the ballot? Because who wants to pay property taxes? But then there goes our fire levy, our police levies, and we're all dead in the water, and there's not really a good remedy for that. And people think, and I've seen the scrolls on, Facebook and everything, well, we can just go back to being a township. Well, we have these same services, service department, roads for the roads and fire and the police. We had those when we were a township. It costs money. It costs more than it did when we were a township. we're not gonna get rid of all the things that are costly without cutting total services. So there's some really scary things that are coming down the pipe. And we need to educate the voters of how this will, there are better ways than House Bill 335 to give people relief. And not that I don't think that people should have relief. I definitely do. You know me. I want to save a penny wherever I can. But there are different ways, and even the county associations and the auditors associations have put out ideas. Like, for example, increasing the homestead, exemption, because you know that if you live in your home, you're over 65 and you meet the criteria of how much you make, you can qualify for a homestead exemption. They've talked about even raising the limit for what you can earn and still have that, that exemption. There's lots of other ideas. I mean, easy peasy, we could have just not, raised our property taxes this time and left them the same way, rather than adjusting in the 30% that they did. I mean, there's so many ideas out there that would work, but nobody's taking the time to actually bring those forward, and everybody's rushing to think that they've done something when they've only caused more problems. So it's really sad, but I really think we need to educate the residents, because I've heard people have asked me, hey, what do you think about this initiative? And I'm like, let me tell you what it means and what it's going to mean to you. Yeah, you might not have any property tax. We'll be the only state that would have zero property tax because everybody else does. But you won't have the services you have now. Even if we go back to being a township, you won't have the services that you have now. There's just no way. And the reality of that, it needs to be brought home. It's not a fear-mongering thing, it's a reality. You can't pay for something when you don't have the money to pay for it. And nobody works for free. So there are lots of things that you need to be aware of that are coming down the pike that we need to at least have in our minds, and what are we going to do, or how are we going to address them? How do we educate people, and how do we go to the right people and make suggestions that are worthwhile, that will really help the taxpayers and not kill our cities.
Any other comments?
If we don't like House Bill 335 enough, it also gives unelected county budget commissions a lot more power to revise, review, and restrict local government's budgets. So I'm not a big fan of that either. On top of everything else we discussed.
I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of it. I can tell you that the bill is 170 some pages. It is a very hard read. You have to be wide awake, and you have to be willing to flip the other sections to understand what they're talking about. And quite honest, I'm not through it yet. It's a very hard read. It is sad that we're at the state that they have to introduce something like this to get everybody to think about how we spend the taxpayers' money. I'm not sure that a letter is going to do any good. I'm not even sure if it'll be opened up before they look at this. But, if you want to write a letter, I'm not opposed to it. You write a letter, I'm just not sure it'll do any good. So,
I did write the letter.
well, I knew you wrote one letter.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got it here in front of me. Your letterhead needs updated.
Yeah, where we grabbed from the wrong stack.
You guys want to waive the 3 on this and take it to vote, or what do you want to do?
Wave 3.
Well, so we don't waive the 3, it'd be no use.
That's fine, I just needed to hear it. All right, then we'll move on to resolution 25-R-28, which is a third reading. A resolution adopting an economic development plan for the Water 9 at Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District Number 1 and the Water 9 at Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District Number 2 and declaring an emergency. We've talked about this extensively over the last couple months. You have comments on it? You want to waive the 3? What do you guys like to do?
This is a third reading.
Yeah, we can't wait for
August
Just
6th.
be a public vote.
Yeah, so you want to take the vote then?
Yeah.
So with that, I will close the Community Development Committee at 6:30.
Next is gonna be our public utilities. Mr. Sellers?
I'd like to open the Public Utilities Committee at 6:30. We have resolution number 25R36 up for adoption. A resolution approving a change order with H.M. Miller Construction Company for the City of New Franklin for water and sewer Rollins Bundle Water Main project and declaring that the resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage. I'm going to kind of paraphrase what the mayor told me here, but this has to do with the water line that we put in that was a full grant from the state,
Feds.
from the federal government, and it became necessary to do some additional paving after this is done. This is not a cost to New Franklin, but instead will come out of the funds that have already been granted by the federal government for this project. We just need to approve
And it's,
the extra paving.
yeah, that's accurate. This might set the record, well, it may be the record for the biggest change order that we've had. But and again, I should have sent something out to you sooner. I sent something mid-afternoon. I don't know if you got to see it. But we received a $970,000 federal grant for extension of water lines to the new ODNR Visitor Center. And it also made it available then for the Tudor House and the new Tudor House Event Center. And we had cost estimates on what that would be. In fact, initially we thought it was going to be sewer and water, but there were reasons why we couldn't get both of them under the same umbrella. So the water component turned out to be, let's say, $600,000. And that was sort of a minimalist approach. It put in the water lines. It would pave half the road where the line went in, but not the other half of the road. And we realized we had more money available. And basically what they encourage you to do is, if it'll benefit the city, you spend as much of it as you can because you don't get to use it somewhere else. If we don't use it here, it goes back. So the concern, the consideration was, well, let's see if we can do some more paving. They went from the 1.5 inch base to the 3 inch base on the asphalt. I say that like I know what I'm talking about, but I sort of do, but Brian can tell you more. We were able to do the full length of the roads, the full width of the roads, as opposed to one lane. We were able to extend it beyond Latham because the line goes actually in the driveway of the Tudor House. And so we extended into the Tudor House, up into the Tudor House, paved the Tudor House parking lot, striped it as well. It just took a while for two things. One, for the contractor to work up the cost, but the second thing that we had to do, and it's been a very complex process, which is a good thing in terms of qualifying for federal money, to get approvals on the way up with the Ohio EPA, and because that's where the grant came through. So we had to make sure that they were on board with this. And since these were improvements that benefited the project, we got to go ahead that, yes, they would approve them, and that's why the legislation comes all at once, one big chunk. So it's a real windfall for the city. I mean, this is paving we're not going to have to do. This is almost $400,000 worth of paving that doesn't cost us anything. But we would like to try to get this passed because we're on the closing stages of that whole project, and we'll be submitting bills soon for reimbursement.
So I had when I first saw this, I was shocked. Because if we're getting something out and you have that much of a discrepancy, it's a 64% change order. Somebody missed something, I thought.
Right.
Then you go back, do we make the engineer responsible for errors and omissions, and somebody missed something. And I reached out to Mr. Kepler to ask him some questions about it, and that's when I got the full story is what happened. Really, we just expanded the scope of the work. And if I'm recalling correctly, didn't Aqua provide us the pipe at their expense?
Yeah, we have a 20%. Go ahead.
So that money, we would have spent that money on that piping anyways, but Aqua had gifted us essentially that pipe, which saved us that money, which now we're using back for paving.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a 20% match is required
Okay.
on this, on so it takes that 970,000 up to like 1.2 million. The total project cost could go up to 1.2 million. The 20%, the 970 would be the federal money, and the balance of that would be the 20% match. Aqua is covering the 20% match. So anything we spend up to that 970 is covered under the federal grant. So so it's really, we engaged, we hired we used OHM to assist us with the dealings with this federal grant. It's extremely complex, but they encouraged us, and I'm happy to say that the people at the other end of the line said, "Hey, what else? You got something else you can spend this money on? That's still project related." So,
Well, you mentioned that this water is going to the new center at the state park and Tudor House will be able to take advantage of. But we also have about 30 houses along that route that will be able to tie into it if they choose. And then we also have more fire hydrants along the line to help protect the houses, not just on the streets, but in the general vicinity, we'll be able to extend hoses or fill up trucks as tanks as needed. So there's many benefits to this project, not just the state park.
This is money that's already been granted to New Franklin without any of our input on that. I did kind of think it was a little bit janky all along for our homeowners along that route to have half a road paved and the other half not. So I'm happy to see this come through. I think it's a no-brainer for us. Everybody comfortable waiving the fee or have any further comments?
Yeah.
Okay. With that, I will close the Public Utilities Committee at 6:37.
All right, final committee meeting for the laws and ordinance, Mr. Wolf.
We will open the Laws and Ordinance Committee meeting at 6:39 p.m. We have two ordinances. They look a lot alike, sound a lot alike. Ordinance 25001. An ordinance authorizing the creation of a tax increment financing incentive district, the Water 9 on Turkeyfoot Lake Incentive District Number 1. Pursuant to sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43 of the revised code and declaring an emergency. I will just continue to the next ordinance, ordinance number 25002. An ordinance authorizing the creation of a tax increment financing incentive district, the Water 9 on Turkeyfoot Lake Incentive District Number 2, pursuant to the sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43 of the revised code and declaring an emergency. Any questions, boys?
Nothing has changed since last time.
yeah, well, basically there were three things that came out of the last, the second reading, and those have been addressed in the exhibits that will be attached to become part of the ordinances themselves. It was suggested there be a breakdown between phase 1 and phase 2, and what those phases are and the cost, et cetera. And so that's addressed in the development and tax increment financing agreement. On the first page of that agreement, there was a question about whether or not, what if there was a new development, some new project within this TIF district, would they have to come back for a new agreement? And the answer to that is yes. And that's been incorporated in on page 4 of the agreement as well. And then there was a concern about start dates, commencement date, et cetera, and that was then incorporated in the developer performance and maintenance agreement. So all three of those issues have been addressed.
Any other questions? None? Okay, we're going to close the Laws and Ordinance Committee at 6:41.
All right, with that, I'd like to call to order the City of New Franklin Council meeting. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Cox?
Present.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones?
Present?
Mr. Powell?
Present.
Mr. Stiles?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Present.
Mr. Almond?
Present. Thank you. So I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting of May 21st.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second vote.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
You abstain. Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
All right, do I have an approval for the financials of May 2025, subject to audit?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
All right. Next is our public comments. Will you please address council and keep your comments to 4 minutes? Anybody?
Yeah, Mike Hoffman, 4123 Belcher Avenue. On that contingency plan, Mr. Powell, I think that reducing the credit from 2% down to something lower would have a better chance of passing than raising it up. I'm in the 10% that pays the whole 2%. So having others share some of that burden would be better. I wanted to talk again about the short-term rental and maybe get an update from our on our committee about it. One, I know you're talking about having a conditional permit for that. Can you describe what you think that process would be, how it would be evaluated? I know that by going through the zoning variance process, it was very subjective and frankly unfair, and I'm interested in how that would be evaluated for people to get a permit.
Before we begin, can you explain what do you mean by subjective and unfair? I know.
I'll just say it's subjective on how that variance board was deciding on what projects would get approved and how things were done. It was a very subjective process, and I'm curious on how the conditional permit for short-term rentals would be evaluated. Would it go through that same variance board? Or
We haven't really gotten that far, but there will be introduction to legislation next meeting. The committee is going to present that to council. We do have a subsequent meeting. There's not even agreement in the committee just yet, 100% on how that looks. So if anybody does mention something,
right,
I think it's a bit premature. But I'll leave it at that.
Will there be a notification like there is for a zoning permit to the neighbors that can have an opportunity to voice their opinion on whether it's disruptive to the neighborhood?
Yeah, so my plan was to follow the zoning code certificates that we already had in the code. I think it's pursuant to 300.01, I believe, if that's correct. I'm trying to remember the whole zoning code offhand right now, but I was going to meet with Barry Gano before our next meeting and then have it submitted to the law director for review before we do bring it up to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting, which will be a month from now.
Okay.
So we'll go to the Barry Gano, our zoning board, and then, you'll have to meet the requirements of everything. So before you can even advertise and operate a short-term rental, you have to get the zoning certificate from the zoning department. And then that will follow the application procedure that we've currently built. So I have an application form that we're working on, and I have to work with Barry to make sure it's uniform with what our other zoning application processes are, and that works best with his office, of course, as well, for streamlining the process for both people learning about it through sending out notices and for the applicant himself. So when it comes to the application process, that will probably be involved in it, but I have to work with Barry to know and see how his office handles such work like that. So that may be something that's incorporated in it. Yeah, I was planning on it.
If I could interject for a second. I was going to mention this, so you can check one item off my mayor's report. There is legislation that's being discussed in Columbus relative to the authority for municipalities to regulate the short-term rentals. My information, what we've been advised is that probably sometime in late fall, That'll come up for a vote, and it'll either be adopted or no. So we've got a window here, and I think a sufficient window for council to present something. And then in terms of the opportunity for, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but in terms of the opportunity for input, it's a little tough to sort of critique a document that hasn't been fully drafted yet. If and when it is, and it's presented, if you follow that timeline, it'll be presented at the July meeting, there'll be an opportunity to go 3 readings on that and get into mid-August, and still pass it and be ahead of anything that Columbus might do. So I think you got a good timeline, and there'll be 3 different opportunities for people to, first of all, take a look at what's being proposed and then provide input and if they like or don't like the specific provisions of it.
Yeah, I figured that. I was referring more to input on a case-by-case basis. So somebody applies for a permit in your neighborhood next door to you. Will that next door neighbor have an opportunity? Will they get notified, hey, there's been a request for a conditional permit for a short-term rental, and you have an opportunity to comment? It may be rejected, and they say, we don't care what you
Yeah, we
think.
have,
But
we have
that's-
processes.
That's the process I'm wondering is going to be put in place to get neighbor comments on those short-term rentals. And
I
again,
think it's up for discussion. Yeah, I think it's premature.
I was gonna say, like, we have processes for that, like what, we put the sign up and everything, there's a certain amount of days beforehand and stuff like that, or when it'll be discussed or something like that. We're gonna try to make it uniform with the rest of the code, to where that we already have stuff that informs residents like that,
right.
and then we'll try to work with the zoning department and see what best works, for the process that works like that, yeah, so I don't know
Okay.
exactly what would best work, but, when we do present that next meeting.
I'm just advocating for a process.
Yeah.
like that, so.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember, like, it's 300.01, I believe, but it's what we're gonna follow.
And I know that some people here haven't seen, this is my 3rd time talking about the issue, but the concern I have is on the high-density lakefront properties,
Yeah.
not where there's space, a lot of space between houses that's less disruptive, to the
Where
neighborhood.
everyone wants to be.
And that's the whole thing with the state adopting legislation, that, because it's like they're trying to make a bill that's one fits all, and obviously we have a unique situation with the lakes.
Right.
It doesn't, it's probably different if you go out to Norton, where they don't have such a high density, lakefront area, so it's like, that's why I don't believe legislation from the state level will be able to effectively manage the problem.
Yeah.
That's why I'm for home rule in this issue, and that's why we're working through it now.
Right. 2 months ago, Mayfield Heights their council voted to disallow all short-term rentals in the whole town. So there's more cities,
Yeah.
doing this. But just as a quick anecdote, I know my neighbors would like to comment, is that rental near us that I've talked about before, about 3 weeks ago on three consecutive nights, 3 different renters, each one night rental. And also more than 2 cars in the driveway. They were half parked. And then last week, there was a renter, was there 4 days, 2 cars in the driveway, 1 straddling the road, and their whole pontoon boat trailer filling the rest of the front yard that's there. So just giving you a sense. I know I still want to have an invitation to have you guys come over and visit our neighborhood. And Chris lives next door, so I will yield to my neighbor, and Chris, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Chris Chokrep. I live at 4089 Alcourt, to the north of the new Airbnb that kind of surprised me. I drove up for the summer. I'm a summer resident. I stayed till about November. We've had the house for 38 years. And I have a 94-year-old mother who comes and visits once a week with me or a weekend. And my bedroom window is about the size of the desk. It's probably less than the size of the desk from their bedroom window. So on a cool night, with both windows open, I can hear people snoring. They're having sex. It's pretty amazing. I'm in an ultra high density position where it's 5 feet from cottage to cottage. And I live in South Florida and work down there for 7 or 8 months a year. And we have a lot of short-term rentals, and they're prohibited with that type of a situation where you can almost touch each home. they do permit it, and they usually have a 7 to 28 day window with a pretty hefty bed tax that goes to the county or the municipality, excuse me, my voice. I'm recovering from radiation on my throat. So we have issues with that. Plus this place, I think it's advertised it can hold up to 10 people there. I'm concerned because in our neighborhood down south where I live, it's an area of critical concern where we were all septic at one time until the federal government came and gave us money for building a sewer system, which was great. But of course, everybody was assessed many thousands of dollars to hook up to it. My point is, if there's 7 or 8 or 10 people in there and there's only 1 bathroom or 2 bathrooms, and you have guys with prostate problems in the evening, are they gonna go out and pee in my yard or in the lake? I'm not making a joke. This is a serious thing. Is the sewage capability of an Airbnb big enough in this situation? It's just a health concern. And I'm also concerned that my mother is over there and she has a stroke, which she's had before. And there's cars there. Can an ambulance get in quick enough to get my mother out of there? And these are just, or fire or police. And these are just points that I think should be addressed when you guys come up with some type of some kind of regulation for rentals, for density. They can't all be uniform. They can't be all under one hat. It has to be pretty well looked at, case by case, and inspected and regulated and blah, blah, blah. I'm in the Florida Keys where it's a high tourist area. It's actually over touristed. And what's happened with a lot of the Airbnb rentals, people have moved out, they've come in, and it's driving out the residents who've lived there for many years. And it's become just a big island of hotels, private hotels. And I hate to see that happen out in the Portage Lakes. I grew up water skiing out there. I love the place, and I hate to see the neighborhood just vanish. And, just my area. It's a critical concern to me. And thanks for letting me voice my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for speaking up. I apologize if you hear such things. And in our neighbor up North Coventry already has a rule, like we're going to follow the same thing with the septic issues, is that if they use an on-site septic system, they have to comply with Summit County's, the Summit County rules, health and safety rules, and the Ohio EPA regulations as well. So like, when it comes to at least prostate issues and septic issues, like you say, they'll have to follow general health and safety guidelines by the county.
Anybody else with any public comment? Scott?
In regards to the cemetery again,
I need your name and address.
Judy Costco.
Costco?
Costco, K-O-S-C-O. 10715 Strasser.
Thank you.
It's Canal Farm. I go up to the cemetery at least once a week. And I wash my husband's grave, tombstone, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law. And we keep it very neat. Well, when I had our 10-year-old grandson with me the other day, and I see this new list of new rules. And I read them and I said, Carson, I said, read them. I don't know if I'm seeing all this right. So he read it, and they live next door to Brookfield Cemetery, which is very well taken care of. This cemetery is very well taken care of. But this idea of, and I don't know, Brian, if you're talking about the little tractor that we had on Butch's grave, about the toy. It's not a toy. It's a replica of a Kubota tractor, small. And it was Butch's dream. So he got it like 4 years before he passed. And so our 25-year-old grandson found this. So we put it right against the stone. It's not hurting nothing. And I've got that little gate with a wrench on it, like I said the last time. and 3 solar lights. Now, I don't know, are you taking the solar lights out? I know in April, I had to go up and get it all out because he said they had to go. I don't know what the big deal is about solar lights in that little gate, and nothing is in the grass that needs mowed around. I pull weeds. We keep it very neat and very nice. And our great-grandson, him and I walked around the cemetery the other day, and he saw where a couple babies was born. And he says, Grandma, they can't even have a toy here, or a little bear or anything, where that broke his heart to think that these babies can't even have nothing. One was 2 years old, and one was obviously born, dad died right away because it was the same day. And he was so close to his papa. And he's been really upset by all of this. And this upset him the other day. And he says, Grandma, go to the meeting and see what you can do. We went back and got the tractor and took it home because he don't want to throw it away. But it means something to our family. And the grave is not shattered. We keep it very nice. And there's not that much in there that is out of place anywhere there in the cemetery. I agree 100%. The ones that are not taken care of, pitch the stuff. But the ones of us that are taking care of the graves, leave them alone. Do you have a problem with those solar lights again, Brian?
Yeah, but if you could direct your comments to us, please.
Pardon?
You have to
Direct your
address
comments to
us.
us, please.
I what?
You're talking to us.
Well, all right. Do you guys have a problem with solar lights? We've had solar lights on my father-in-law's grave for, he's been there over 50 years. And there was never anything till my husband died. And now I've got 3 solar lights, one there, one on my mother-in-law and father-in-law, one in the middle between us, and one on our grave. And the first time, everything got pitched. Approximately $100 worth of stuff was thrown in the dump that day because I didn't know everything was going to get pitched. And so I knew it was coming again, and our son said, Mom, you better get up there and get that stuff. And I said, I don't think they'll do it again. Well, I got up there at 7:30 and I waited. About 8 o'clock, they pulled in. Sure enough, they scatter around and they're taking everything. So, pulled everything out, took them home. Then I'm going to take it back up and put it back in, put the flowers up and everything. It just don't make sense. Them lights aren't hurting nothing.
Are you speaking of the scheduled biannual cleanup?
The what?
The scheduled biannual cleanup of the cemetery, is that what you're speaking of?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But, you know, the lights can, I walked around several different cemeteries. They do not take, and I've talked to people, they do not pull the solar lights out. They let them there. It's just foolish.
So what we'll do is we'll get a few of the council members, we'll meet with the mayor and deputy service director, and we'll discuss it and see if there's any, we'll discuss the situation.
Well, they said that the last time, and that's why I was thinking I won't need to go because I knew it was going to be discussed. Maybe somebody had a heart. But sure enough, they were swooping in and pulling everything again. And like I said, I can understand taking the Christmas stuff away that people don't have enough sense to go back and get. Or something that's getting run over. But I pull weeds. We keep it nice. And then those signs that you put up in the cemetery, them weren't cheap. 6 frames, 6 big signs. That costs money. And that's all. I'm just, our poor little great-grandson was just devastated again. And it's sad that we got to keep going through this every time over solar lights or that some little tractor that was up there that meant so much to our grandkids and the great-grandkids.
We promise you, we will have a meeting within 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll take, yeah.
We'll have a meeting.
This is the first time hearing.
You within 2 weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and you're welcome to call me if I don't do it.
Anybody else with any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first reading. Resolution 25R33, Kelly?
A resolution authorizing New Franklin to renew membership in the Public Entities Pool of Ohio and to enter into an agreement with Summit Insurance Agency to be the local representative with Burnham and Flower of Ohio as sales and member services provider, with Sedgwick as the administrator, and with Perso as claims and risk control service provider, for the purpose of providing liability insurance and property damage coverage for New Franklin and declaring an emergency.
This resolution was brought before the Finance Committee. Do we have a motion to waive the three? So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
We move to adopt Resolution 25R33. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R34, Kelly?
A resolution to proceed with an additional levy of a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation to replace an expiring 5.75 mil fire EMS levy to enable the City of New Franklin to provide fire protection services and ambulance and emergency medical services, and to submit the question of the tax to the electors at the November 4, 2025 election and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule for Resolution 25R34.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to pass Resolution 25R34.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes. Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R35, Kelly?
A resolution opposing House Bill 335 and urging the Ohio General Assembly to reject legislation that eliminates inside millage and transfers local budgetary authority to county budget commissions and declaring an emergency.
This was brought forth, we took in front of the Community Development Committee. I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 25-R-35.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. Resolution 25R36, Kelly?
A resolution approving a change order with H.M. Miller Construction Company for the City of New Franklin for water and sewer Rollins Bundle Water Main project, and declaring that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage.
This resolution was brought before the Public Utilities Committee. Can I get a motion to waive the 3? So moved.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 25R36.
Second.
We have a first and a second?
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cotts?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7-0. Next is going to be Resolution 25R28.
A resolution adopting an economic development plan for the Water 9 at Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District Number 1 and the Water 9 at Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District 2 and declaring an emergency.
This was brought before Community Development Committee. I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 25-R-28.
Second.
With the first and a second?
Mr. Cotts?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to abstain. I'm not voting for this.
Mrs. Jones?
No.
Mr. Powell?
No.
Mr. Stiles?
I need to abstain.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Resolution passes 3-2. Ordinance 2501, Kelly?
An ordinance authorizing the creation of a tax increment financing incentive district for Water 9 on Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District 1 pursuant to sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43 of the revised code and declaring an emergency.
This ordinance was brought in front of the Laws and Ordinance Committee. I move we adopt ordinance 25001.
Second.
With the first and a second?
Mr. Schaefer?
Abstain?
Mrs. Jones?
No.
Mr. Powell?
No.
Mr. Stiles?
Abstain.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Resolution passes 3-2. I'm sorry, ordinance passes 3-2. Ordinance 25002.
An ordinance authorizing the creation of a tax increment financing incentive district, the Water 9 on Turkey Foot Lake Incentive District Number 2, pursuant to sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43 of the revised code and declaring an emergency.
This ordinance too is brought in front of the Laws and Ordinance Committee. I move to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
With the first and a second?
Mrs. Jones? Mr. Powell?
No.
Mr. Stiles?
Abstain.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Abstain?
The ordinance passes 3-2.
I'd like to quickly point out that Resolution 25R28, Ordinance 25001, and Ordinance 25002 did not receive enough votes for a declaration of emergency. Correct? So it will not take effect for 30 days.
Next, we move on to the mayor's report.
Our favorite
Our
part.
favorite.
I didn't want to have to say it myself. It's my favorite part. Okay. I really don't have anything particularly earth-shattering. We only talked about a couple of things I would have talked about. So I'll just invite everybody out to the Tudor House Tuesday. National recording artist Teddy Robb will be out there. Free concert, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You are invited to do a Lawson Music Center thing and bring your cooler and some goodies and some snacks and beverages and come on out and listen to some really great entertainment. So we're having a lot of fun out there at the Tudor House, and we hope you can join us. And then come back on Friday, July 4th for our old-fashioned 4th of July. And if there's any pie bakers in the audience, we do need a few more pie bakers for our annual pie baking contest. So that's on again for Friday, the 4th of July. That's from noon to 4 p.m. on that day. And we're looking forward to that as well. I understand that the boat parade and the fireworks are going to be Saturday, July 5th. And there's plenty of activities at State Park as well, the sandcastle building contest and the whole thing. So these are wonderful days to be in the lakes. And speaking of the State Park, we were invited to a tour of the visitor center, which is moving towards completion. The sewer's there, the water's there. It's a beautiful structure, and I think everybody's going to be very happy with it. It was always advertised to me at about a $4 million price tag, and so I'm way behind the times. I thought $4 million, that thing's going to be gigantic. Well, $4 million doesn't make gigantic, but it's as big as it needs to be. I think you'll really, really enjoy it when you enter the atrium area. It's a vaulted ceiling with the big heavy beams, and there's a sensory area for sensory appreciation. There's going to be the offices. They'll sell some merchandise. Restrooms on that floor. There's a wing that goes out from that floor that overlooks the lake. It is just spectacular. And then the lower section will have restrooms, changing area. It's got some showers out front to get the sand off. It may be staffed year-round, but it's certainly going to be staffed through the summer months. And it looks now, I think they were talking about September, but I think they moved it back to October 10th. So we'll certainly let everybody know when that's opened up. And it's just another fabulous thing, I think, for Portage Lakes, for New Franklin, and for the city. All right, and then just to also on the Parks Commission met last night, and a couple things happened there. As you're aware that we'd like to put a walking trail out there, and we'd like to get some restrooms out there. And so eventually some playground equipment. We found out that to do the restrooms, that flow has to go somewhere, and it's going to go to the package plant that the schools have out there. And then we learned that the package plant needs work, whether they take our flow or whether they don't. And there was a pretty high number in the range of $130,000 for them to do what they needed to do at the package plant. We got together with the individual who monitors that for the schools, and also with the schools' site foreman, and with our deputy service director, and some guys we put together, and it appears that we can get that done for in the range of $70,000, and a good portion of that will be the cost for the cities to do the work. So I've had a discussion with the schools on that. They're going to get back to me. We're looking to, hopefully they'll agree, and you'll agree that we split the cost on that. That'd be $35,000 approximately for each. Big savings for the school. We can't do the restrooms until we get this piece done. And it'd be about $19,000 out of pocket. $16,000 would be the sweat equity from the service department. We'll make sure we got it pinned down that we don't run up short of the funds. And the Parks Commission has made their recommendation that we enter that agreement if the schools are in court as well. And then we would follow that with the restrooms, and we had looked at, this will be a surprise for Brian, he likes surprises, that the restroom units that were being discussed were the total restroom project is going to be about $95,000. We need the cement pads. We got to run the sewer. We got to run water. We got to run the power to it. Some walk-ups, and then the units themselves. And we're looking at 4 different units: a dual unit and a handicap, and in 2 different places. Anyway, it's going to be about $23,000 for those. I talked to the Parks Commission about making a recommendation to purchase those so we don't run into tariff things and can get those at a later date. And we probably store those and do the rest of the work in the spring. And then one of the gentlemen on the Parks Commission pointed out that there may be something a little bit nicer, not too much more expensive. So that's tabled, and we'll come back to you on that one. And the last thing to come out of Parks is again, the cost of outsourcing a half-mile trail was in excess of $200,000. And the service department, and Brian indicated that they felt they could do a lot of that work. We needed a piece of equipment to do that, and council approved the purchase of that skid steer, which is should have one a long time ago. But now we do. And so that was a chunk of money that came out of the parks budget. But there is a piece that we need that we can't do internally, and that's the construction engineering and all the permitting to get us in, to get the county permitting with, as far as stormwater, et cetera, et cetera. So we have a proposal from OHM, and they've done all the work on this up to this point in time, in the range of about $38,000 to do that engineering. The Parks Commission is recommending that we go forward with that. This is out of the Parks budget. Try to get that piece done, and we'll be in a position then to work on that trail in the early part of next year, possibly later this year. So I tell you all that now. That legislation will be coming when we get together in July. That's all I got.
You mentioned Dragons on the Lake.
That will be right after our next meeting, but you're right. Yeah, that's July 19th. So the Dragon Boat Race, and actually I get yearling out to secure exactly who's going to be in that boat and defending our title, which is no small thing. We take it serious, our tattlers. So,
Bad News Bears we were the Bad News Bears of the Dragons of the Lake.
yeah, we kicked butt though, didn't we? Yeah, I say we, but I wasn't in the boat this year, so it's a collective we. I was a supervisor. Yeah, yes, we're looking forward to that.
Next up, finance report, Sue.
Well, we are busy doing what we always do and getting ready for our audit, which will be the next thing. I did have my week before last, my yearly training, a lot of good stuff there during the training. For example, one of the people that came to discuss budgeting and some of the things we discussed tonight was the commissioner of the Geauga County. Very, very good information. I always find that there's new things, new information that I get every year, so I'm really happy about that. And happy that there's one place to go and to get all of my requirements done, and they do a good job doing that. We're getting into the summertime when people are having their vacation, believe it or not. So Chris is out this week, but we're still working on getting all the things done. That's why it was a little late this month. I had training and people were out, so you didn't get your monthly reports as quickly as we would have liked, but we're still working as hard as we can. Stephanie did her first payroll, the last pay. So I checked it over. We had a couple of things that we had to work out, but pretty good. So she's coming right along, which, and maybe I can breathe a sigh of relief. But other than that, we're just doing the same things we always do and keeping up with everything that we can. But we definitely need to have some meetings to talk over some of the things that are on the horizon and all be on the same page and know where we're going from here. That's all I have.
Do you have any old business?
Yes, we do. We had the farmer's market this past week, and I think it was pretty much a success. I did not do popcorn because I did not have a table, but the popcorn will be here this coming week, tomorrow. So we expect everyone to be here, and it was fun.
Anybody with anything else? Seeing none, we have any new business?
Real quick, I was just curious, is there a farmer's market this week?
It's a farmer's market tomorrow night from 3 until 7. There's going to be popcorn there. You have to stop by for it, but we have popcorn too. Thank you. Guys, that was sweet. That was pretty sweet. Thank you. I one of those too, was
Yes, he's known for that.
I think so.
It's Jim's trademark.
It is Joe's trademark. He tries to hide it.
See no other old business, any new business? I wanted to mention that we're going to have our third annual Touch a Truck will be on August 30th, 9 to noon, just like we've done in previous years. And then another thing I wanted to bring up, last year we had talked about a possible change to how we elect board seats. I know the original language was a little, I won't say aggressive, but it swung the pendulum from one side to the other. And we were talking about bringing that back, whether it's an even split between council and mayor. And wonder if you guys would be receptive to seeing that at the next meeting to get on to the ballot.
Yes, I think it'd be good.
Okay.
To get on the ballot.
Yes, that would be a change, that would be a charter amendment. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else have any new business? Seeing none? Public comment, if anybody has anything they heard or want to discuss about tonight's meeting, it's your second chance to do so.
Sharon Goodwin, 679 Hampshire Road. I just wanted to touch on the walking trail system. I'm glad that it's sized down to half a mile instead of anything larger. I hope that no more trees will have to be compromised with regards to that. And I just wanted to say that there's a trail, or a couple trails that I found at the Metro Park over off of Warner and South Main Street. They're simple, hard-pressed dirt with some sort of fine gravel on them. I walked there just last week. There were people with strollers, people on bikes, people walking. It's not fancy, just kind of winds around through the trees. Didn't seem to be a whole lot of drainage problems, and it looked like it would be relatively easy to maintain. There was a ranger that came through on his little whatever. So it's big enough for that, but it's not too big. I just wanted to say that that kind of trail is possible for the person to enjoy.
Where was that trail?
It's
Person.
off of Warner and then the
Isn't it
little
like the little turtle ponds
Yeah.
that the kids have fishing?
Yeah, that's one side of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome.
Any other public comments? Seeing none? Do we have a need for executive session?
We do, to discuss compensation of public employees.
All right. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? Second. We have a first and a second. Kelly?
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Stiles?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Yes.
We're headed to executive session where no decisions have been made. We'll return after that. Our next council meeting is July 16th, 6 p.m.